least it's coherent.
Right,
So,
because we're not.
No. All right.
All right, so I'm betting, Duncan, that we have some coherent Worthington's Law clips that we could look at.
Yeah, they're sort of coherent. Yeah. So
all of them should be more coherent than the one that we just watched.
Oh, absolutely.
Can we set the bar at least that high?
Yeah, it's much more coherent than what we watched.
Wonderful. So I feel good about setting it there. So what are we going to look at now?
So we're going to look at the Money Guy show, and they did the crossover episode with Dave Ramsey. And as much as I'd love to do the whole whatever it was, 45-minute hour show and go through how just terrible it was, because they suck up to him the entire time. And I'm sure all the questions were pre-scripted for them, what they could ask Dave Ramsey. They go in there and they did suck up pretty bad. And just, I'm going to give you sort of a taste of how bad it was and how incoherent.
Preston, the Money Guy. You mentioned that every year, over the last 30 years, there's always something to worry about, always something to be concerned about, always something to be nervous about, always something that's frightening out there. When you think about looking over the next 30 years, and you think about the future for your grandchildren and for their children, and that, are there things that get you excited? Are there things that you're seeing that are changing, at least as it relates to building wealth and personal finance, where you say, you know what, this is what, if I had to attack the world today, this is the way that I would do it. I'd go figure out how to be a programmer, or I'd get into real estate. Or are there things that you say, I've seen this story before, I know this movie, here's what I'd recommend to do moving forward to build wealth?
I'm the opposite of pessimistic about the world we live in.
I'm going to add, I actually think that's not a bad question, right? You're an old guy. You've been doing stuff for a long time. You're a businessman. What would you do if you were starting today, knowing what you know? I think that's a decent question. The problem is he's going to give a bad answer, and they're just not going to push back.
Live in today. There's problems today that are different and big, but there's more stuff to do that's different and big. I mean, you can, when I started, it was a big deal to buy a personal computer, and now you can log on your phone and start a business in 26 seconds. And you just suddenly, I am now on Etsy. I'm now on eBay. The number of people that call us that are doing side hustles where they're just doing some kind of buying old golf clubs, the old eBay story, right? And fix them up and sell them, in the old days we used to have to put an ad in the section of the newspaper back when we had these things called newspapers, and they had ads in them, and they were classified ads, and then people had to come to your garage. No, man, they just ding, 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 and all of a sudden you can start a business and make so much money right now, so much easier. The barrier of entry to making money and building a career, and if you don't like it, changing it is, oh God, it's an exciting time. I mean, the stuff, and it's not, the speed of that is good, and yet the speed of the problems are there. And so, but it comes back to, I'm not going to adopt a victim mentality. I'm going to control my future destiny. And it comes back to this belief that the guy in my mirror is the problem and the solution. And he can do it. She can do it. And man, that's called hope. And it works. My grandkids, man, I envy them. I wish I was going to be around to get to play in the sandboxes they're going to play in. It's going to be fast.
I think it's interesting because you're hitting on something really powerful, Dave, and the fact that we've already talked about the Millionaire Next Door. We've talked about y'all's own wealth survey. We have our own survey. Optimism is the key. I mean, it's not even close. I mean, it is 87 to 90% of successful people share that same optimistic mentality. And we talk.
Okay. So, was that coherent enough for you?
Yeah. Did he have an optimistic mentality?
Well, here's the deal. This is where we go back to Worthington's Law, which is our fun little game that we play. Worthington's Law is not a real thing. It was something we stole from a sketch show from the 90s. All
right, so why don't you define for us in your 30-second version what this is?
Oh, it's even quicker than that. Worthington's Law just means the more money you have equals the better person you are. So if somebody has more money than you, they're therefore better than you and beyond criticism. Right? That's Worthington's Law. We make a joke about it because that permeates in the financial world where they're sitting there going, well, gee, wealth is optimism and wealth are sort of correlated. And it's like, are they though? And how do we know that? Right? Well, we did studies and rich people tend to be more optimistic. Well, yeah, because they're rich. I mean, it could be that it's just because, well, yeah, I'm very optimistic. I have lots of opportunities. I'm a millionaire. As opposed to, I'm poor, I have no opportunity. Yeah.
I could go to any school I wanted. If I want to move across the country, I can do so. If I want to, etc., etc.
I can start a business in 26 seconds because I have the resources and capital and ability to do it.
If I don't want to clean my bathroom, I can hire somebody to do that because I can afford to pay a cleaning service, right?
Yada yada yada. So the premise of this was such a great question to get, right? If they were saying, somebody asked me, okay, Duncan, at your age, what would you have done differently, right? Knowing what you know and knowing how the world is today. And I would have, thought about it. And I would have said, well, I'd have done these things differently, right? I wouldn't sit there and go, gosh, it's so much better today than it was when I was there. And it's so much easier, because that was his answer. Anybody can be rich today. Anybody can just start their own business and make $1 million. The other problem with that is this, and this is what bugs me about Brian Preston and Bo Hansen and the Money Guys show, is they're CFAs and they're both CFPs. They should know that that's not true, that that's actually false, because the reality is things are worse today than they used to be. And I'll show you this right here. Let's see if I can get this cleaned up a little bit. So I looked this up. Here's just the Federal Reserve Bank of Chicago. And they did this is the Economic Mobility Project. So what they're talking about is what's called intergenerational mobility. It's what are the odds that you'll end up making more money than your parents, equally. And you can go through this article. We'll attach it below. But this is what I wanted to show you was this graph. This is called the Great Gatsby Curve. And what they do is they look at all these different countries. And on the left here, on the vertical, it's the intergenerational earnings mobility. Okay? So the higher you are, the less mobile people are in your country. The less likely they're going to make more money than their parents. All right? The lower you are, the more likely they're going to make more money than their parents. And on the horizontal line here, it's what does income inequality look like? All right? If your income inequality is above 30 to 35, it's bad. Because that's what it was in the 1920s in the United States. Okay? So look where the United States sits. We have worse mobility, income mobility, than Pakistan, Switzerland, Singapore, France, Spain, Japan, Germany, New Zealand, Australia, Sweden, Finland, Norway, Denmark, Canada. We're terrible. You are less likely to make more money than your parents in the United States today than you were when Dave was starting out. And if you talk about income inequality, we are really bad. But we're comparable to your ability to actually change and make more money. I mean, we're barely better than what? Italy and China and Argentina and Chile. I mean, so to sit here and go, well, it's so much easier and better today, and it's you should be so optimistic. It's like, yeah, I'm not sitting there saying you shouldn't be hopeful, but I think you should be realistic. And when he sits there and goes looking in the mirror and realizing you're the problem and the solution, well, no, you might not be the problem, but you were probably the only solution. And I would rather you go into that battle prepared than you go in thinking, oh, well, this will be an easy win and get your ass kicked. And I think it's very irresponsible for two CFPs to sit there and tell people, oh, yeah, we agree. And if you're just optimistic, it'll be fine. It's the whole road to hell is paved with good intentions, right? I'm sure Confucius said, I'm sure you've seen it on a fortune cookie, right? But that's the problem is if you're not prepared for what you're actually going to be competing against, then it's kind of worthless as a financial analysis. If I tell you that this is going to be easy and it ends up being incredibly hard, then I've kind of done you a disservice. And I think it's really irresponsible of them to do that. I don't know if you agree or disagree with me, but I think that was a little tacky on their part not to follow up and say, well, but let's be reasonable. Or at least say, hey.
Well, I feel like missed an opportunity. I'm going to go a totally different direction on this, honestly. I'm not disagreeing with you. It's just a different thing that
Sure.
I've really noticed. So one of the things that was asked of Dave Ramsey by the Money Guys had to do with like what he was excited about, like what he felt optimistic about within personal finance now. And he started talking about technology, which felt, I'm not saying he's not excited about technology, and yes, compared to when he was younger, it really is wonderful.
Right.
But I feel like he's missed some opportunities to plug things that are happening that he could even toot his own horn about, honestly. Like, talking about, how a lot of the millennials generation are really, really more uncomfortable with the idea of death than the older generations than them. And for his platform, that's a total win. Like those kinds of things to be excited about. He missed some opportunities to actually really jump into some things that are happening with the younger generations in personal finance.
Right.
That actually would have totally aligned for him with his platform. So I'm not really sure why he didn't go there, instead start talking about you can start a business from your cell phone, which is super cool. But
if you have
missed opportunity on his part,
but
know what I'm saying?
Once again, the technology, you still have to have the money and the resources to have the technology. You have to have the money. If I'm going to buy and sell used golf clubs, I have to have the money to buy the golf clubs and ship them and do all that. I have to have cash up front. That's the thing he's missing, is you have to have capital to do all that anyway. So we're not talking about everybody. We're talking about people who already have money.
So the thing that excites him, though, he's excited about a thing that only applies to people who already are of certain means, rather than being excited about things that apply a little bit more generally, maybe across a generational board, so to speak, which also ironically aligns with his platform.
But that's the problem, is that when we're looking at financial planning, we're not looking at it in a, we are, I mean, and you should be looking at it in a not in a generic approach, but in an individualized approach, because it's different for every person. It's not a one size fits all. And the thing I have a problem with is when you're sitting there going, well, we're talking about in general, it's just better for everybody. I just showed you a graph that shows you it's not. And the reason millennials are so against debt, and the Zoomers are so against debt and are so against big purchases and don't want to buy houses and are less likely to want to get married and spend that money, isn't because things are so great. It's because things are so bad. They're trying to hold on to as much of their cash as they can because they're afraid, and they should be. So it's not a win for Dave. And furthermore, it kills the sales pitch, because the sales pitch is do what I say and you'll be rich. Do what I say and you'll be a millionaire. He says it over and over and over. And the Money Guy show does it a lot too. This is how you build wealth and become independent and become a millionaire and all this crap. It's the sales pitch. So if I sit there and say, well, yeah, it's great because they're more averse to debt. But then, they're more averse to debt because they're broke.
Well,
then it kind of kills my whole fucking...
I think he can still swing all of that sort of to, kind of proving his own point, being like, see all of these things that people have done to themselves and the society has done to the people, and this younger generation, they're not standing for that, and they're on my team. You know what I mean? Like trying to.
I don't follow you at all there. Sorry. I didn't.
Well, sorry. I think that he can. I think that he can sort of use that to sort of show that there are more masses of people that are wanting to do the kinds of things that his platform suggests, even though he probably wouldn't be citing the reason why, because he wouldn't necessarily flow in with that. But,
I don't see that there are a lot of people trying to do those things because of his platform. They're doing them for very different reasons.
No, they're doing it for very different reasons, but he could certainly utilize that and try to connect it to his own platform.
No, because his platform is for a very different reason. It's the idea is if you do these things, you'll become wealthy. That's what he's selling. That's his snake oil sales pitch. But that's not.
Snake oil.
It is snake oil because it doesn't make anybody rich. Not having debt doesn't make you instantly rich. There's no correlation there. So he can't. My problem is that it's irresponsible. Especially, Dave saying it is one thing because he doesn't really have any credentials. The money guys show on the other end. These guys are putting CFA, CFP behind their names. They're educated. They should have pushed back or said something. Because it's irresponsible to sit there and say, oh, well, yeah, see, it's just optimism. No. There's other factors here that we need to be really talking about. Now, they're not economists, so I'm not going to dog them too much. But the bottom line is it's irresponsible to not point out that, yeah, but if you're in a situation where you don't have that kind of resource and capital, now we're talking about a different person. But once again, they're business people. They're not targeting poor people. They're targeting people with money because those are the people who can afford their products.